Okay, soon enough we'll be joined by a very, very interesting person. And I hope you did get to read a little bit about him. I sent you the Wikipedia entry for him, the English Wikipedia entry about him. He is one of the most, as I said, fascinating, in my opinion, figures in Israeli political life that are not like that are famous for their principles and interesting resume, so to speak, and interesting doing. And we are absolutely joyous to have him join us, in my opinion. Well, we should be. I've attached the Wikipedia entry to the chat box, so now you can see that, you can read that later. And he is well known for several things, and we'll talk with him, we'll hear him. He will talk about Jerusalem for him, as he is president of Shalom Yerushalayim Foundation, the Peace of Jerusalem Foundation, and he is joining us at this very moment. We are right on time, so I'll present him. I'll check that he can hear me. Rabbi Glick, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'll be with you in 1 second. Okay, here I am.
Okay, very good, excellent. So as I said, we are absolutely fortunate and joyous to have today with us one of the most interesting voices in Israeli public sphere, in my opinion, and certainly one of the most famous redheads in Israeli public life. He is, according to his name, his last name, he is the luckiest person. His last name, Glick, sure shows that he is lucky, and I'm sure we'll get to it. He was very lucky several years ago to actually be able to be with us. He is a former Knesset member from 2016 to 2019, and today he is the president of the Shalom Yerushalayim Foundation. He is a rabbi and a Bible teacher and so many other things, and I hope that we'll get to some of them. He is well known for, he's also a tour guide in Jerusalem, and he is well known to be one of the experts on the question of the Temple Mount. So I want to start with a question that is Jerusalem oriented. What is Jerusalem for you, Rabbi Glick?
First of all, shalom to everybody. I hope you can hear me. I'm extremely excited speaking to you.
Let's give him a warm shalom.
Shalom.
Thank you so much. I'll be happy to see all the people that are hiding behind.
Right, guys.
Behind their names.
You can, if you have your
nothing to be ashamed of, I'll be happy to see
your camera. I'm not ashamed of you guys.
You can
if you have your camera, so you can open it, so Rabbi Glick can see that.
Open it. I have no problem whether you are with the. I have no problem with you whether you are with makeup or without makeup. I see that Mr. Georgie has a wonderful background in behind him. That's really very exciting. Actually, I'm pretty surprised. I was sure the interview tonight would be in biblical Hebrew, but it sounded a little closer to English to me. But we will start in English. Wow, you started without any doing things anything gradually. You immediately started with the pinpoint question: what is Jerusalem for me? Wow, that's a question with a lot of depth into it, and I really feel that Jerusalem is mainly the foundation of faith. It's the foundation of all faith. It's the foundation of my faith. It's the foundation of your faith. Whether it was Abraham or even before Abraham, the king of Shalom, king of justice, Melchizedek, who welcomed Abraham on his victory, and he showed what it means to respect others, and all the way through Abraham, who showed us what faith is and what devotion is and what commitment is. And he said, Hineni, here I am. And through King David, who gave his whole life to God in honor of Jerusalem, following by his son Solomon, who taught us what Jerusalem was all about. And I could say, if I quote the book of Psalms, several places, Jerusalem, a city that unites, a Jerusalem surrounded with mountains, as it says in Psalm 125, and that the same way God surrounds his people from now and forever. God, in Jerusalem, you're surrounded with mountains, and you know you're surrounded with God. God embraces you, but not only does he embrace you, our relationship to God is he is our father and he is our mother. And when I look at the picture of Jerusalem in the center and surrounded by mountains, I feel that we are in the womb of God. We are in his womb. He is our beloved mother. He's protecting us. Many empires are gone. Romans, the Byzantines, the Babylonians, Assyrians, Canaanites, all the way through the Ottoman Empire and the many others on the way. So Jerusalem for me is the connection to eternity, but it's not only the connection to eternity as a Jew, but it's what unites all peoples. It's the house of prayer for all nations, and it's the origin of the word of God to all peoples, wherever they are, whomever they are. And so today, and I'm running the Shalom Jerusalem Foundation. It's the foundation that really puts Jerusalem on the table. And it puts Jerusalem on the table as a foundation of peace. And those of you who can visit us are welcome to visit at shalomjerusalem.org. I go there every week to Temple Mount, and I pray for people who give in prayer requests. I teach Torah from Jerusalem. Well, you asked the question, Tanel, and I just can't stop answering that question. So you better.
All right. Go ahead. I think we're all enjoying your answer.
Go on and on. Thank you so much. And when I'm sitting here in Jerusalem and I turn on my computer and I see all your faces, for me, you are here with me in Jerusalem. And I really would like to share my heart. It's a very interesting thing I paid attention to today. There's one word in the Psalm I just mentioned before, 125, that talks about the righteous. And the word is V'liyesharim b'libotam, and to the righteous, to the straight, upright in their heart. And the word V'liyesharim is the same letters as the word Jerusalem, Yerushalayim. So Jerusalem is the heart of the righteous. So I think that it's a very beautiful thing. And any way I look at it, Jerusalem is something that can give us a strong backbone and a strong, as I said, foundation stone for our faith. And therefore, it's an obligation and it demands a commitment. It demands a commitment. And if we are now in the process of the Zionist movement of returning to Jerusalem, returning to Israel, and next week we'll be celebrating Jerusalem Day, the day of unity, that we united Jerusalem. The next step, in my eyes, of the Zionist movement is turning it not into a national movement, but into a global movement. A movement that announces the fact that when God chooses Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he says to them, I'm choosing you so that you should be a blessing to all the peoples. And all of this together combines and centralizes itself in Jerusalem. So I'm proud and really privileged that God allowed me to serve him as a ambassador of Jerusalem. And I will speak up about Jerusalem. And I will invite all of you again to shalomjerusalem.org to visit the Shalom Jerusalem Foundation.
I will put a link to the website in the chat box so everybody can get into the website, and I will, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm saying that that's what it's all about. In my eyes, Shalom and Jerusalem are the two synonyms in my eyes, but also the good of Jerusalem. It says, Yivarechecha Adonai Mitzion, God shall bless you from Zion, and you will see the good of Jerusalem. So there's the Shalom of Jerusalem. It says, Shalom Yerushalayim, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. There should be peace only in Jerusalem. A Jerusalem peace. It's a special kind of peace. It's a peace that unites not only on the fact that I'm tolerant to you, so I won't step on you even though you aggravate me. But the tolerance of Jerusalem is the fact that we understand that we're all part of one big puzzle. We're all part of one big harmony. And just like when you go to the concert, you don't want to only hear the drum. You don't want to only hear the cello. You want to hear all the instruments together. This is Jerusalem. And that's why it says that the light of the world, that Zechariah talks about, will come out to the world from Jerusalem. And Jerusalem is God's throne, is God's Jerusalem is God's house and an origin of His word to the world. Yes, you can see the wonderful website that we have. You can read about the Jerusalem Bible Conference, and as it says here, for the Torah will go forth from Zion, and the word of God from Jerusalem. Zion is usually referred to as the more spiritual part of Jerusalem, and Jerusalem is more the geographical, topographical part. But as I said again, Jerusalem, you just said, and it like incites, ignites a spark in my heart, and I think in hearts of so many people around the world.
Right. Excellent. So when you're talking about Jerusalem as kind of a capital of faith in general, there is one spot in Jerusalem that is more special than any other spot in Jerusalem, which has so many unique places, and that is the Temple Mount. The question of the Temple Mount is a detrimental question in so many aspects in Israeli life, and in its question of liberties, civil liberties, question of relationship to the Israeli-Arab conflict, questions of Israeli and diaspora relationship. What is the Temple Mount, and how you view the question of the Temple Mount in regards to both Israeli-Arab conflict as well as civil liberties in Israel? And I'm asking that because you do have a unique approach to that question, in my humble opinion.
Thank you so much, Nathaniel. And really, I'm not the topic. We're talking now about Jerusalem, about God, about...
Sure, yes.
Now, I want to say something. I just finished right before I joined here, like a half an hour ago, I participated in the United States Congress led by Ambassador Sam Brownback, and it was speaking about freedom of religion. We spoke about persecution against religious people all over the world, and for me, that's what Jerusalem is all about, and that's what Temple Mount is all about. I'm sure you're all familiar with the beginning of Isaiah 2. Repeat itself. Come up to the mountain of God, and we'll say, God, show us your ways, and show us the word of God will come from Jerusalem. And it says, He will judge between the nations. And when we refer to He will judge between the nations, again, Isaiah 2, when it says He will judge, Vishafat, the sentence in verse 4, He will judge. Who is He? Now I see in the English here, it says He in a capital H, referring to God. But the subject of these sentences, if you look before, is, and it will be in the end of days in verse 2, the mountain of God will be above all hills. So the subject is the mountain. So will it be God who will judge, or will it be the mountain who will judge? And I think it's a very important point. The mountain of God. In this world, the mountain will be who is inciting, who is encouraging hate, and who is encouraging inclusiveness, diversity. And I think when we look at the mountain, we see people who are coming up, and all they want to do is pray. And unfortunately, the Muslims who were given the right to run the place on a religious level, these are people very often who are not allowing others to pray, not allowing others to carry a Bible, not allowing others to demonstrate any kind of religious activity. And this is something that's very disturbing for me. because the Temple Mount is supposed to be the symbol. The same chapter, you say that I would say parallel to this chapter, is exactly the same thing in Isaiah 11, which we're all familiar with. The wolf living with the sheep and the leopard living with the lamb, but we forget that the final letter of sentence of there is in verse 9, and it'll be, I'm talking about Isaiah 11. In Isaiah 11, you will see it talks about everybody living together and all the nations living together. Go on to verse number 6, 7, 8, and it talks about all of these living together. And point in verse number 9, it's talking about the mountain of God, the mountain of God. And in that day, as it says here, all of my sacred mount, nothing evil or vile shall be done. The whole message of diversity, of a child baby playing with a viper's hole. By the way, I don't know if you realize, what is this? A child playing with a snake takes us back to the Garden of Eden, where man and snake were sort of the origin of sin, and they were in friction with each other. Here we see they're making peace with each other. And where does this all begin? On God's holy mountain. The idea of the Temple Mount is something that should be a symbol of diversity living together, a symbol of different kinds of animals living together, and a symbol of what we were supposed to be. When God created the world, if you recall, before the flood, men were vegetarians. So what we see here is something extremely beautiful. Today, Israel is a democratic country, and we respect agreements, and unfortunately, Muslims to run the religious authority. But lately, more and more people are visiting the Temple Mount, and I must say, on the one hand, there's been a major change, and today people can visit quietly, peacefully on Temple Mount. But still, where they're not allowing carrying Bibles on the Temple Mount, they're not allowing religious Jews to walk around freely and pray or even drink from water faucets. And I think the more and more people come to the Temple Mount and show that they want to worship God and want to respect the fact that other people are different, this is really what I believe the Temple Mount is all about.
Right. I should maybe clarify something about this unbelievable reality for people who are not well familiar with this subject. There are about 10 gates to the Temple Mount. If I'm wrong, Rabbi Glick will correct me.
There are actually 11 gates, but one of them is actually a small gate which doesn't lead. So majorly, there are 10 gates that are used. 9 of them are used for Muslims, and only one of them is used for non-Muslims.
And you can get which one has. Right.
The one that's for non-Muslims is opened only 4 hours a day. The other ones are open 16 hours a day. I see here there's a question from Mignon who asks about if what I quoted what I quoted in Isaiah 2 and Isaiah 11. He says, isn't that about the Messianic era? I want to point out that the Bible does not mention the word Messianic era. The Bible talks about the end of days. Now, I don't know what the end of days is, but one thing I want to mention that the concept that the Bible is talking about, and that maybe that's something maybe that's something that should be mentioned, is that for many years the people of Israel stayed in the exile because they were waiting for God to send the Messiah. But one of the major crucial messages of the Zionist movement was that it's not that we should be waiting for God to send the Messiah, is that God is waiting for us to build up the land. He's waiting for us to establish the Temple Mount as a house of prayer for all nations. When we do that, then we will be led by a king and Messiah. But the whole idea that we're supposed to sit passively and wait for God to do the work is something that's anti-Bible. The whole concept of the Bible is commitment, devotion, commitment, and that's our job. When the Messiah has come, how he comes, that's not in our hands. That is in most of this event. We can't sit around and say, okay, we'll fight until Messiah comes, he'll make peace. That's not the way it should be. The Bible talks about There are two words in Hebrew. One is Yehud and the other is Goral. And when you believe in determinism or fatalism, but the Bible teaches us we have destiny. We are a nation of destiny and not a nation of, how would you say, they would translate the Goral and fate. We're not a nation that has, we have a faith and that's what it's going to be. It doesn't work that way. Many people, you're familiar with the story of Moses, where his mother put him in the river, which to save his life. There are many stories in the Greek mysticism of different people who were hidden, and some miraculously grew. But the difference between those stories are these people. It says in the mystical stories, they wanted to prevent them from their faith, but apparently their faith took over. But by
Rabbi
Moses,
Glick,
who was our leader,
the connection. Can you get closer to your connection source, because there is a bit of a kind of a connection issue. We're losing you a little bit.
I think there shouldn't be disconnections, but I'm saying again, Moses was saved he went out and he understood he has a mission to save others. He saw two Jews fighting. He saw an Egyptian fighting a Jew. He saw the daughters of Jethro being exploited by the shepherds. And this was the story. The story is that we are not a nation of faith. We are a nation who are in charge of taking our destiny in our hands. And that's the story of the Bible. That's the story of the return of the people of Israel to Israel. That's the story of the redemption process. And that is the story about the Messianic era. We are not waiting for God to bring a Messiah. God is waiting for us to promote it. Of course, we'll be very happy when the Messiah comes. And as Carol says, we'll be ones who've been waiting for. But of course, we'll be waiting for. But waiting for means not to stay passive, but actually to do whatever we can to bring it about. And what we can do is improve the world. And when God finished creating man, at the beginning it says at the beginning God created heaven and earth. But the final word of the creation story is that Asher bara Elohim la'asot. God created for us to do. And that's where the Bible starts. The Bible begins. I created the world. I created man in my B'Tselem Elohim, in my image. It's not unlike the word image, but God says you are to be the God of the world by promoting the world, by upgrading the world, by developing things, by bringing about new technology, by not looking at the wheat, but making it into cake. Of course, dietetic cake, low-cal cake, not turning into
yeah, we've talked about Rabbi Akiva quite recently, I think. Yeah.
But I'm saying that had to be wait until he was sent. But that was when he was supposed to be sent to save the people. But he did not wait for him to be sent to save others. He did not wait until he was sent. And the people of Israel were sent as soon as we came out of Egypt. We were sent, and on Mount Sinai we received a mission, an assignment, and it was not only an assignment given to the people of Israel, but when God created the world and He chose Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and He said to them, "You are to teach the world what justice is all about." This assignment was given to all of humanity. So we have a mission, we have an assignment to make this world closer to God and to announce God's kingdom, God's dynasty in the world.